So here we have three different relations in each of the diagrams, A, B, and C, and we have to say whether or not they're functions, and if they're a function, whether or not they're one-to-one. We're also going to talk a little bit about whether they're onto functions, although that's not quite as important. So let's say we begin with A. Okay, so first of all, is it a function? Well, is it a function means we have to answer the question, is every element in the domain, okay, and we'll mark off the domains. Okay, so that's a domain in the first one, that's a domain in the second one, that's a domain in the third one, and the other one is the range. So here are the ranges of each of these relations. Okay, so going back to the first relation. Is every element in the domain matched to an element in the range? And we can see here that it's not, because 25 is not matched up. So immediately we say this is not a function. Okay? Not a function because 25 in the domain is not paired with anything in the range. Okay? There's no arrow leaving the 25. And if it's going to be a function, you have to have an arrow, a single arrow, one arrow, leaving every piece in the domain. So every element of the domain has to have one arrow leaving it. Since 25 doesn't have an arrow leaving it, then this is not a function. And since it's not a function, we don't have to worry about whether it's one-to-one or onto, because they only apply to functions, and this is not a function. Now, in this example, we have a free element, an unmatched element in the domain, which means it's not a function. If the free element, however, was in the range, so let's say we had the 25 over here, and this is now a different question, we've changed the question a little bit. If we had a 25 over here in the range, and it wasn't paired, we would still have a function. It is okay to have a free, unmatched element in the range. That does not stop it being a function. This would still be a function now because you have a single arrow leaving everything in the domain. But since in our case the free element was in the domain, that's not allowed if you're going to describe this as a function. So in A, we don't have a function. Okay, let's move on to B. Okay, we'll pull it back down to get a look at it again. And if we look at B, every element in the domain, the 8, the 11, the 17, and the 25, has exactly one arrow leaving it. So one arrow leaves every element, and that means this is a function. This is a function. Okay. If you had two arrows leaving any of these, let's say there were two arrows leaving the 8, so 8 to 12, and let's say the 8 was matched up to 4 as well. In that case, if the 8 was matched up to 4, then that would stop it being a function, because you're not allowed to have two arrows leaving any element. You're not allowed to have two arrows leaving an element. We'll see in a minute that you are allowed to have two arrows arriving at an element, but you can't have two arrows leaving an element. So this is a function, because only one arrow leaves each element. The next question is it one-to-one? Well, it's one-to-one as long as no two of these arrows are going to any single element in the range. Are they all going to different elements? Well, the 8 goes to the 12, the 11 goes to the 4, the 17 goes to the 93, and the 25 goes to the 58. Okay, they are all, every arrow goes to a different element. That means it's one-to-one. Okay. Every arrow points to a different element in the range, and that means this function is one-to-one. Okay, one-to-one. Now we said we would also talk about onto, even though it wasn't asked in the question. A function is onto, can be described as onto if every element in the range is used, if there are no free elements. And we can see that there are no free elements in the range. Everything is used. So there are no free elements, so that is a non-to function. There are no, we'll call it free or unmatched elements in the range. So this function, not alone is it 1 to 1, this function is also described as onto. Okay, so that function has both properties. It is, we're looking at B here, it's definitely a function. One arrow leaves every element in the domain. That means it's a function. No two of the arrows are going to the same element, so that means it's 1 to 1, and everything in the range is used, so that means it's onto. Okay, time to look at part C. Time to look at part C. So, is it a function first? How many arrows leave each point in the domain? So there's one arrow leaving 8, one arrow leaving 11, one arrow leaving 17, one arrow leaving 25, and there are no free elements over here. So this is a function. Okay? This is a function. Okay, because there's only one arrow leaving each element in the domain, and every element in the domain is used. Okay, is it 1 to 1? Well, the 8 goes to 12, the 11 goes to 4, that's okay. The 17 goes to 93, but the 25 is also going to 93. So this is not 1 to 1, because you have two arrows going to a single element in the right. Okay? This is not 1 to 1 because two arrows, okay, one from, let's check where they're from again, 17, and one from 25. From 17 and 25 both point to the same element. Element in the range. I think we said it was at 95. Let's just check it again. Pull it back down. 93. I beg your pardon, 93. Okay. And then the final thing that we're going to look at to finish off here today is to check whether it's onto. Is every element in the range used? So the 12 is used, the 4 is used, the 93 is used twice, but that's okay. Every element is used. So since every element is used, that's considered a non-to function. So every element in the range is used. So this function is onto. Okay. Okay. So it's a little bit of a job to keep track of the three different things that we're looking for. First of all, is it a function? Do you have one arrow leaving every element? One arrow and only one arrow leaving every element? One from there, one from there, one from there, but none from there. So that's not a function. One from there, one from there, one from there, and one from there. This one is a function. One from here, one from here, one from here, and one from here. This one's a function. So those are functions. We're not going to look at the first one anymore because that was not a function. So we're looking at B and C. Is it 1 to 1? Is there only one arrow leaving everything on the left and going to a single arrow on the right? So the 8 goes to the 12, the 11 goes to the 4, 17 goes to 93, 25 goes to 58. So no two arrows are pointing to the same element in the range. So as long as no two arrows arrive at the same point, it's 1 to 1. This one is not 1 to 1. We're looking at C now. C is not 1 to 1 because two different arrows arrive at the 93. Okay? So once that happens, once you have two arrows landing on one element, it's not 1 to 1. Are the functions onto? In other words, to check whether or not they're onto, just check is everything in the range used. The 12 is used, the 4 is used, the 93 is used, and the 58 is used. Okay, everything there is used, so that's onto. The 12 is used, the 4 is used, and the 93 is used. So that's onto as well. Okay? So That's a long video, 10 minutes, but thank you for sticking it through. Hopefully it helps.